Hey everyone, welcome to Spotlight On. I'm in studio today with actor, improv artist, writer, model, Caitlyn Larimore. She's smart, she's funny, she is model tall. Now, stay tuned to find out what her favorite type of dinosaur is. Don't go away.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
There we go. That is our live studio audience of 3,000 people with us today. No, not really. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Zoe Hewitt, and I am joined in studio today with Caitlyn Larimore. Before we get going, let's let you know where you can find us. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. And Caitlyn, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Caitlyn Larimore on Instagram and Dinosaur Disco on Twitter.
Now, of course, with that lead-in like Dinosaur Disco, we've got to start out. Caitlyn, I know you love dinosaur facts. What is your favorite dinosaur? And if you were a dinosaur, what type would you be?
Ooh, I don't know if I've ever been asked that. That's a good question. Well, my favorite dinosaur, I kind of rotate through, but I think right now my favorite dinosaur is the Compsognathus.
Whoa.
Just a little guy. Just a little guy, and I just feel like he could have been like the pet to all the big dinosaurs, which I kind of like.
That's like the little dog dinosaur, right?
Yeah, I just feel like also maybe he would be my friend and not eat me, so.
Which is always a plus.
Right, so that's my favorite.
And you know, when I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking, I think I'd like to be a brontosaurus. And then I have to tell you guys, I was talking to Caitlyn about dinosaur facts, and did you guys know that brontosauruses or brontosaurii are actually no longer dinosaurs? This is like when Pluto was demoted, so I'm really disappointed, so now I don't know what I would be.
I will say there are some facts now that maybe that's not true, so the science community is just a buzz about
Yes, fingers crossed.
that. Brace yourselves.
Exactly. And brace yourselves for what is coming next. We've got a fun show ahead. And Caitlyn, you just wrapped a great series called Heartbeat. It was a dramedy about a female heart surgeon, and you played one of the medical interns, Lynn. Now, I understand that the role started as just like a silent sight gag, but it turned into so much more. So what was it like as you learned that role would be developing?
It was really exciting, I think was the first thing, and kind of it was really kind of flattering. I know that they had kind of a loose story built, like I've become friends with some of the writers, so I've learned a little bit more about what happened behind the scenes, but my experience of it was when I was originally cast, it was no lines, potential to reoccur, and I didn't have any lines in the first episode that I worked on, and then the director at the time, Allison Letty Brown, who I love, she just threw me a line, and I did something funny with it, and then I just kind of, I don't know, found the character a little bit, and then they started writing and creating more things for me, and it just kind of unfolded that way, which was really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge compliment to you. Now, when you get cast in a role that has 0 lines, do you feel like there's actually more pressure on you to do something so that you can stand out and get that line thrown to you? Or do you feel like, oh, maybe I can sort of disappear a little bit?
Well, I think I don't know if you know actors, but I don't think they ever like to disappear. So even extras, I think, are always like trying to get in there. But I think there's pressure, you know, because like they're the regulars, they have like tons of dialogue, so there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. But I do think often when you have one line or no lines, but you have one scene, it becomes bigger for you, and there is a different type of pressure that I think is, I almost would say equally as hard, because it's hard in a different way. Because I know the episodes where I had just one line and sometimes it was just a few words, I struggled with it so much more than if I had a few lines, or, you know, I had like a whole thing that I was doing, like a scene. The one sentence, you're always like, here it comes, oh man, like it's like trying to catch a train.
Right. And you don't want to screw up like your one line, right?
Yeah, and you want to like do something with it, but it's like really hard to kind of, you know, so yeah, there's pressure with it, but I think, you know, it's a challenge that I think most people want to rise to, because you're like, oh, I have a line, yes.
Especially feeling like, hey, I was cast on this big NBC show. I mean, that's really exciting. So congratulations and kudos to you on that. And how much fun did you have behind the scenes?
Oh, I had so much fun. I spent a lot of time with Rudy Martinez. He played Marty on the show, and he's a really wonderful actor. I've seen him in a couple of plays. But he and I a lot of our scenes were together, and so we would be waiting together and going on together for most of the season. And so he and I got into all sorts of trouble. We borrowed a golf cart one time because we wrapped a little early. I mean, we didn't steal it, but, you know, I mean, we borrowed it, and we just took off on the lot. We were in wardrobe, and we were having the best time because we were just kind of like, private tour on the lot! And then we kept being, like, having fun, and then suddenly being like, are we supposed to be here? I don't know if we're supposed to be here. And then another golf cart rolled up next to us, and it was the AD Laz, and he rolled up and he's like, what are you guys doing? We're doing a golf cart. And we're like, so he drove off, and he caught up to us and was like, guys, I want you to meet your director for the next episode, who was in the golf cart with him. We were like, ooh.
As you're like flooring it.
Oh yeah, and we were like, that was not a great impression. We had fun.
Well, that's what counts, right? What lot were you guys on?
The NBC Universal.
Okay. And Universal's a fun lot because you have all the stuff that the tram tour does, so you can really explore back there.
Oh yeah, no, my brother came to visit one of the last episodes, and so we got permission this time to get a golf cart, and we went all over the place, but we kept somehow accidentally getting kind of not in the way of the tram, but near the tram, and it just feels a little awkward that there's all these people having their tour, and then you're just out there just, you know, parked. And so we would always, like, try and hide, because we were like, we don't want them to see us, because we're all very socially adjusted.
No, that's the part that's the most fun, when you're like, all of you are on the tram, and I'm in my car! Or in my golf cart!
Whenever we hid, there's, like, a train station. We went and kind of, like, stood behind the wall as the tram was going by, because we were just like, doo-doo-doo. We're just, like, standing there, like, we're a prop, we're totally normal people.
And then all the people on the tram, of course, went home and they were like, hey, there's that woman from the show. Yes, absolutely. So something else that was really interesting about this show is that so many of the behind the scenes, like, quote unquote, important roles were filled by women. Lots of the producers, lots of your directors were women. And so how do you think that made a difference on set, being more surrounded by women in the power roles?
That is also a good question. I'm trying to think of how it was different. Because I think that there's probably pluses and minuses to both, but what I really loved about being on set was that aspect, because it was just nice to see. You don't see that very often, because I feel like, you know, most sets run, you know, they run differently, but I think that this set was, like, run extremely well, and I do think it had to do with who was running things. I won't necessarily put that just because they were women. They were extraordinary people, and, like, really intelligent, really smart, like, very like, great leadership. They knew what they wanted, and they were great communicators. And so maybe that might be the only difference, is that I did notice I didn't see a lot of, you know, arguments or anything. Like, even when things were really tense and we were running behind and it was just, like, like, tons of extra, you know, like, those big scenes, I was really impressed with the way that the producers and the directors and like, men and women, but a lot of the women were the people in the highest leadership. They would communicate so well even under pressure. And I do think that kind of created this, everyone respected everyone, I felt like. And it was such a, like, harmonious, beautiful set to be a part of. I was so honored to be a part of it just for that aspect. It was awesome.
Well, I think it's really interesting having that. I mean, there's so much talk right now. I'd say it really started going back to the Oscars this past year, but so much talk about diversity. And of course, diversity isn't just a matter of race, but it is also a matter of gender. And so it's really interesting that you worked on this set that was particularly diverse in this way. And how it also made a difference, I think. And so do you think that that was a conscious choice on their end, that they were like, oh, let's find all these female directors, let's give more women a chance?
I don't know. I mean, I think you'd have to ask them that to know if that was a conscious thing. I would venture to guess that because it's based off of Dr. Kathy Magliato. Nailed it. Yes! I was worried about saying her name wrong because I did a while ago. Sorry, Kathy. But because it's based off of her, Jill Gordon is the creator, and then I think that probably she surrounded herself with like-minded people, and probably a lot of them happened to be women. This is what I would assume. But I don't know if it was... you'd have to ask her. I don't know if she sought out only women, because I mean there were definitely men as well, like Brad Sibberling, and we also had some men in the writers' room. But it was a very female-heavy production, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, really fascinating. And so, what is the most interesting medical tidbit that you picked up from set?
Oh man, I feel like they kind of would, like, go over my head. There was one. Well, I mean, I learned how to swab somebody when you're sterilizing them before you cut them open. But I mean, Kathy Magliato gave us so many wonderful lessons in what was going on. I mean, just the scripts, also like the writers, they had to research and come up with all these different ailments and things people were going through. So I feel like there's a lot of things I absorbed, but I don't know if I could tell you exactly. Even the words themselves were hard to pronounce. So I'm not really sure. I feel like I had a very limited understanding. I mean, like the stuff you had to put on for surgery, I think we had the people showing us how to put on the gloves and everything correctly so it would be sterile, like, because they wanted it to be correct, to be reflected correctly on the show, which I also really appreciated. Yeah. Because, sometimes you see shows and you hear about how doctors like, oh, God, that show is so inaccurate. And I heard time and time again from people, I have a friend who's a doctor, and he was like, I was really impressed with how a lot of it was very accurate. And I was like, I had nothing to do with that, but you're welcome.
But I can go into surgery with my sterile gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're definitely familiar with behind the scenes. You wrote, produced, and starred in The River Bride, which won multiple awards at multiple film festivals, including the Best Short Film for the Oregon Independent Film Festival, and more recently, congratulations, in a South African film festival as well.
Yeah, it's called the Rapid Lion Film Festival, and they honored us with the Best International Short, which was really cool. I just found out 2 days ago.
Which is hot off the press news for all of you. And the movie is available online for anyone who wants to watch, and it tackles a serious subject of two strangers who are in the midst of their most difficult time, but there are also some light parts as well. And I noticed that both you and J.R. Wickman, who plays opposite you, were on Leverage, so did you meet there? Is that how your relationship started?
No, but that's good sleuthing. We were in different episodes. J.R. is a dear friend of mine. He's definitely one of my closest friends, and we went to college together. So I met him my freshman year of college. We were both in the theater department, and my first play I did in college, I played his wife, which was funny because we also have kind of a height difference the way Rudy and I did. So I don't know if that's like my
that's your thing now.
It's my thing. But it was the Norman Conquest, since it's very kind of like a dry British. It's very funny. But he was Norman and I was his wife, and that's where we met. And then we've just stayed friends. I mean, we've been friends for like 13 years now or something ridiculous like that.
And so did you write the part specifically with him in mind? He was already like, Caitlyn, I'm on board, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, we talked about collaborating. I lived here when I wrote it, and he lives in LA now, but he, at the time, lived in Portland still. And we talked about collaborating, and I had this, the whole story actually started with the image of someone pulling a woman out of the river in a wedding dress. I just thought it was like kind of a poetic, beautiful image, just like the dress in the water. And I was like, well, what scenario would that involve? And then it, over development, it became what it is. But JR, I really wanted to work with him. We hadn't worked together in a professional context ever. And we'd just done we did sketch comedy in Portland and theater in college. So we did that with the intention of working together.
And so what about the rest of the cast? Were they also people you had long-term relationships with? I mean, there weren't many others.
Yeah,
but...
there weren't a ton. The people, the woman in the TV, there's like that news segment where the person playing my mother is both of our close friend. She was our acting coach in college, actually, but she's become she's like family at this point. She coached us during the in our rehearsals for the film. She was our acting coach, and then I was like, will you be in it? And then the other actors in it were really wonderful and donated their time without really knowing me. We kind of reached out to our small community and we're like, do you know any actors that would fit this role? And Shauna and Matt were really awesome. They played the kids they're adults, but they look like kids at the time. They played the kids that came to the campfire. And then Michael played my father. Okay. Oh, Matt Hogan. He was also a small part in there. He's a friend of mine.
There are no small parts, right?
Right. And he did his one line really well.
Really well. He rocked that one line.
We were going to bring him back, but it's a short film.
Right. There you go. So one of the parts that I loved in it also, which I felt like, I don't know, was when the actor who played your dad said that the reward was $8,000. It was like, $8,000 This is like what you can scrape together.
Yeah, exactly. We grappled with that number actually, because I didn't want it to be so exorbitant, but we were like, what's a number where it would be an insult but just enough money that people would look for her? So we were like, I think $8,000 is probably, I don't know.
No, it was so perfect because the first time I was like, wait, is it me or is that funny? I was like, that seems like a really small amount if your child is missing.
Yeah, we wanted it to be insulting, but enough that people would be like, well, let's find her.
I loved that. I loved the relationship too with Jean, or played by J.R. Wickman. Obviously, like such a nice relationship there. And I noticed also that the movie itself was very quiet overall. There wasn't a lot of background music. We got some like at the beginning, but otherwise it was more sort of natural, I guess, of what the sounds were. Was that a conscious choice not to include a lot of music?
Yeah, I think so, because being a 15-minute film, I didn't want, if you fill it with too much, 'cause songs are about 3 minutes, we'll say, it's like, it could become all music, and then it's almost like a very long, pretty music video, and I just think a lot of the scenes didn't really lend itself to songs. I mean, we could have, we toyed with a few scenes, but I kind of liked the natural, like the campfire sound, and then when the music did come in, I feel like it took you further than if we'd had music the whole way.
Yeah, and I loved that, the relationship also, speaking of the campfire scene, I loved that with, like, the peeing on the trees. That was great. And I love that, like, I'm a guy, I can pee on every tree. And it's like, oh, I wish I could.
I know. I don't know why that scene, that's nice of you to say that, because that was one of those things, it's like a really weird little moment, and it has nothing to do with anything, but I felt like it was kind of a real, like, they've been drinking, they're sitting by the fire, eventually you have to pee.
Yeah, I loved it.
That's really nice that you watched it.
Oh, yeah, of course, cool. Of course. And I think everyone should go watch it. It's available online. And
it's on Vimeo.
There we go. Do you know the URL off the top of your head?
It's just, you can search my name and it'll be in my videos, or I think you can just search The River Bride and it's going to be / The River Bride.
Okay, so that's where everyone can go find it now. And, you're definitely no stranger to creating your own projects as well, because I think one of your most famous created projects would be Dorks from 2009. Oh, and you played pretty much every single role, and it was a web show, a mockumentary about sorority girls, and you played all of the different types of women in the show, as well as the head of the chapter, the different sorority women. So what did you love specifically about slipping into each of those characters?
Well, that's it's an older project, but it's still really, like, near and dear to me, even though, I had absolutely no money to do it. I just made it in my room. I literally shot it inside my closet. Like, I would move my clothes out, and I would put a chair inside the closet, and that's where I would shoot it, because I just didn't have any other space. And I had all these wigs and all these it was such a crazy thing to do, because the more I did it, the more it just got more and more elaborate and kind of nuts. But it became very special to me because I got to know those characters so well. Like, I knew who they were at the beginning, but I did something like 18 episodes, and they're like about 5 minutes each. But they, started having whole lives to me. And I knew that it started making me a little crazy by the end, because it was all by myself, and then I would write it, and then I would shoot it, and I would edit the whole thing, and it was my face the whole time by myself. It started making me feel a little nuts, because I wasn't seeing myself anymore. I was seeing these people, and then I would cut it together, and I don't know, it just started getting, someone wanted to, we toyed with the idea of developing it into something else, and I ended up stopping it because I didn't want to work on it anymore, because I was so close to them that I couldn't collaborate. Like, people are like, well, then this character could do this. I'm like, she would never do that. And I was so serious, and I was like, this is a problem. I've lost it. We gotta shelve these and move on, because they're becoming too real, and I was becoming, like, a little tightly wound up there.
No, but that's what's so fun about having so many different characters and getting to wear wigs and having such different personas. So how much work did you put into each one before you thought, okay, I'm ready to introduce them to the show?
Well, I knew the original 5, like the 5 girls, because it was about because I'm sure most people don't actually know what this is, because it's just a very random web show on the internet, but it was about an underdog sorority, so they're all kind of bad in their own right at whatever they're trying to be good at, but they try really hard, and I feel like there's something, I think I identified with that in a big way, of like, they're not winners, but they try really hard to be winners, and there's something very charming about that, I think. but I knew the original 5 right off the bat, and then I got to know them more. And then when I brought in the other sorority that was kind of their rival, they were a little harder because I wanted them to be a little mean, and I had to kind of dig a little deep, but I had to know everybody before I could, even if they weren't in the episode. I didn't know when when I brought a character's mom in, I had to know who she was before I wrote her, because I was like, well, I can't just bring her on, because she has to have a whole backstory of why this character is that way if she was raised by this woman.
So that's interesting that you say that you wrote her. So did you write out scripts for all of the episodes, so it wasn't pure improv?
No, I mean, I had moments of improv, absolutely, but I wrote out every script. I wrote out most of the season, you know, it's like 8 episodes is what I decided I was doing, but for each, like, little thing that I did, I wrote out all of them, and then they were scripted, and I memorized them. Even though I wrote them, I still had to kind of know them, and then yeah, of course, moments of improv would happen, which, again, it made me feel a little crazy, because I'm in my closet, in a wig, like, usually sweating, with the camera, like, completely by myself, being like, rah, rah, like, chugging cereal and, like, doing all this stuff, and I come out all sweaty and gross, and I'm like, well, this is my life. Hello.
But it's important to create your own projects and to do things. And so were there characters who got discarded as you were writing these, thinking, oh, I think I'll have this one, and then you tried to sort of write more for that character or play with it more and realized it just wasn't going to fit in, like, your initial 5?
I don't think so. I think the original 5, I think the only one I had trouble with was the one that I decided didn't speak. She took a vow of silence, and she took longer for me to like. But all of them, I really liked them before, even though they were all bad at things, they were like little, I felt protective of them. I wanted them to win.
Of course, because who doesn't want the underdog to win?
Yeah.
And if you don't want the underdog to win, shame on you. Right? Now, which character was the most like you?
Ooh, I just heard the laugh of, like, the 3 of my friends that are probably watching this right now I'm sure there are more viewers, but of my friends that there are 3 that I know are watching, and I know that they probably are like, ah! I don't know. I feel like I'm probably, man, I don't want to admit it, but I'm probably I'm a blend of Plex, and she's the, like, super excitable nerd, and she just gets in everybody's way, kind of, but she's so, like, excited about everything. She talks like this. Her name's Plex, and she and I have a lot in common. I'm not quite that crazy. Like, I do have some social skills, believe it or not. And then I think probably, man, I don't know, maybe Bethany, and she's kind of the gothy, kind of more pensive, which, you know, I'm like that behind closed doors, I think, sometimes. I kind of sit and I think, and I brood.
So those are the 2 sides of you, the really excitable and the brooding.
Yeah, if you blended them together, because that would tone down the crazy and then also make her not so depressive.
And would your 3 friends agree with you?
Probably not. I mean, it depends. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what our friend Chris, he's watching. Hi, Chris.
Shout out to everyone.
Hi, Chris.
And your mom, right?
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Caitlyn's mom.
She's at home probably like, ah!
You're famous now!
Yeah, I don't know who Chris would probably just be like, no, you're Plex all the way, you're Plex, because he would just say that.
So perhaps the rest of the interview should be done in that voice? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That would be a little hard.
You're like, no.
That'd be a hard interview.
Yeah. And you bouncing all over the room.
And the cords on the headphones only go so far.
Yeah, no, this would be on fire by the end, so I'll just not.
Now, you've won the Mark Twain Comedy Acting Award. You graduated from the UCB Improv program, and a lot of people might not realize, but there are multiple improv schools here in LA, and the most famous are UCB, which stands for Upright Citizens Brigade, there's Groundlings, there's Second City, and they all have sort of a different feel to them. So what would you say appealed to you most about UCB that you decided that's where I want to go, that's the program I want to pursue?
Well, I think what initially drew me, because I didn't actually, I didn't know a lot. I knew about Groundlings, which I was really interested in, and I knew about UCB, and then Second City, because I was a big-time fan of Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and they all came from that area. But I went to a show. My friends Philippe and Brandy took me to my first improv show in LA at UCB. They took me to see ASCAT, and I remember just being blown away by it. I was just like, this was the funniest, most interesting. It was like, it seemed really like smart and quick to me, and I really liked it. And so that, I think, was just they found me first, but I think the like the wit that seemed to just be kind of embedded in it, I really was attracted to. So I think I just looked into classes and I was like, this is good. But I've been looking into other, I've definitely, like, and I also studied with Miles Stroth, and he was like more character based and kind of about, you know, building the scene, which also I found really helpful and I really enjoyed as well.
And so for people who aren't familiar with UCB, can you explain what ASCAT is and that show and the format?
Yeah, ASCAT, so they have there's like a ton of different ways you can structure an improv show. The structure of ASCAT would be, I believe they bring a person up, a monologist, and they tell you something about their life, and it's usually like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, maybe not that long. And sometimes it's famous people, and sometimes it's just a random person or someone that has some sort of interesting skill, and they'll tell a funny story or sad or anything. And the improvisers sit and they listen to the story, and then they hear things in the story that give them an idea, and they'll go and do scenes, like an hour-long show. And it's not necessarily like, you know, somebody would say, like, you know, I was at a bus stop, and they might hear bus stop and think of something else, and then they'll do a story about that. But usually they kind of end up being woven together, and it's usually very impressive.
Absolutely. And the fact, I think when anyone sees an improv show anyway, the fact how that people can think so quickly on their feet and come up with those. And UCB also talks about, like, with the A, B, and C, you don't want to go to just the next logical thing, right? You want to go one step further and see, like you're saying, not just at the bus stop, but what does it make you think of next? And then show the audience that. So it's a lot of fun with characters and, like, your wit, like you said, what you can do.
Well, that's why I think a lot of improvisers end up writing, or that writers will go do improv, because I know it helped my writing a lot, because you kind of do think, like, okay, I first idea, I throw it out, here's my next idea, and so you go like 3 deep, and then you're like, well, now where am I? And I feel like that helps with writing too, because you end up finding something a little more interesting and not so on the nose, which then, even if it is almost like a gimmick, which it's not usually, but even if it is, it's kind of masked. So I think it works for improv and for writing a lot.
And that's interesting. And you said you had taken sketch comedy classes before. So did you ever have the desire after, like, your UCB classes to go home and just really quickly write down the improv sketch that happened so you could keep it, essentially?
I'm trying to think, because I performed for about a year. I was performing a couple nights a week. And I feel like that would have been the time in my life when I would have had just, like, tons and tons of things. But I don't think so, because I think one of the things about improv that's so beautiful is that everything's super temporal. Like, you get up, you do it, and it's done. And it feels tragic in a way, but you get so used to it, it's almost like what you feed off of. You're like, I'm going to create this whole life with this whole scene or this whole show, and then it's gone. Which is kind of nice. Yeah.
Up in smoke. And, you know, and speaking of comedy as well, one of the notations that's on your social media under your accomplishments is that while you were a runway model, you actually never fell. So was that common for women to fall, or men?
I don't common, but it does happen. You know, I mean, like, there are whole YouTube reels of models falling, which I feel like people are, like, sadistic if they want to see that, but also I've watched them.
Oh, that would make me so sad.
Well, it's terrible when it's, like, the women in the really tall heels and you see them losing it, and you're like, no. But no, I just was always terrified of it, because I identify as a clumsy person. I'm not, I feel like I've kind of gotten a hold of my cult-like grace, but I, for a while, was very just clumsy. I just could not figure out my body, and that was during my modeling years, and so I definitely, they put me in 4-inch heels, and I'm already tall, and then you have to walk sometimes like a zigzag runway, and you're just like, it's just walking, but you overthink it. And then also people are staring at you, and sometimes you're not wearing very much clothing, and you're like, I'm gonna fall.
I'm gonna be naked and I'm gonna fall.
Oh yeah, it's just like, it's just walking. It seems like it wouldn't be complicated, but I just think you get it in your head, and sometimes the shoes are very complicated, and for someone who doesn't wear heels very often, so I was very proud I never fell.
I mean, that sounds like a major accomplishment as someone who also worries constantly if I'm going to fall somewhere, and I'm not on a runway.
Have you ever fallen anywhere really embarrassing?
I don't think I have, but I hope that if I ever do, like, knock on wood, that I can handle it like Jennifer Lawrence did at the Oscars, where she was just so good with it, and of course she had the gorgeous gown on, so that helps, and she's like, oh, no come on, deal. Guys. That's how I hope to be if and when, knock on wood again, that I ever fall. What about you? Have you had an embarrassing fall that was not on the runway then?
Oh yeah, no, I had a lot. I have a Rolodex of really mortifying, and it was in that. I don't know what's going on with my everything, but there was a disconnect there. I think the two that come to mind that were the absolute most. I mean, now they're my favorite because they're so ridiculous, but they were so mortifying at the time. Is the first one, I was in Mexico in a very long bus ride. And this wasn't really my fault, but I feel like maybe a less, like a more coordinated person would have handled it better. But I had to go to the bathroom, and the bus was like just going crazy, and I lost my footing, and I slammed. My pants were down, by the way. I slammed into the door, and it unlocked.
No way!
And so I fell out of the bus bathroom, pants down, butt first, and was like, hello!
Oh, embarrassing for sure.
It was good because I caught myself on the doorway, so it was basically like I just came out and was just like, hello! And like, it's pretty great. And then the other one, I fell into the Venice Canal. It was great.
The Venice Canal,
Like
as in Italy or in America?
No.
For people who don't know, here in California we have a Venice and we do have canals.
No, I fell in Venice, Italy. I fell into a canal.
I think you just, whoop. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty great. It just flew right out there like a starfish. It was pretty great.
And you just like climbed out?
Really wasn't that easy. No, I was on some stairs. It's like the water comes up, comes down for, hundreds of years. And so it's very, very slippery. And they say that it's slippery, but I was like a typical American tourist. I'm like, I'm going to look down there anyway. Because I don't know why. It's like more canal, but I
have to see more water.
Yeah, I really just wanted to see more canal. I don't know what I was thinking, but there were some steps and they were muddy, and I was like, note to self, they're gonna be slippery. And so I was being careful, but they were so slippery that my foot, and I just went, and it was like a water slide, and I just shot out into the middle of the canal, like bridge of tourists. They were like, but I couldn't get out because it was so slippery that I was just like, like I couldn't pull myself out.
I'm like, cringing listening to this.
It was pretty great. I was like trying to claw my way up, and the wall was all fuzzy, and then my two brothers were like Spider-Manning, trying to like not fall in themselves.
Right, I was
and
gonna
like,
say.
yeah, so I like belly crawled up, was just covered in mud, and I was like, cool. And then I had to walk back through like a city of canals soaking wet. So it was pretty obvious to everyone what had happened.
And did you see other wet people? Like, did this happen
No.
No.
No, and then when we went to information at the city after I'd showered and cleaned up, I was trying to find out if I needed like a tetanus shot or like what's in the water, am I gonna die? But I didn't want to tell her I fell in, so I was trying to like circle the question. I was just like, so if you went in the water, she's like, no, don't go in the water.
Wait, were you soaking wet at this point?
No, I had showered. I had
Okay.
showered, but I was trying to find out without having to admit what had happened, and she just would not let me not tell her, because she just kept saying, no, don't go in the water. I was like, no, I'm just saying hypothetically, if someone went in the water, she's like, don't go in the water. I was like, okay, I fell in. Am I gonna die? And she was like, oh, did you take a shower? I was like, yes. Never mind, give me my map. I'm leaving.
Because she was thinking that American is trying to suss out if
she wants to
can
go
just
swimming.
go swim in the
Yeah.
canal so she can go home to all her American friends
Yeah.
and tell them she went swimming in the canal.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
she found out I went in there. And now all you know.
Yes. And now everybody knows. Basically, keep Caitlyn out. And you know what? And the River Bride, you came out of water. So actually, you have like a long history with water. Come to think of it now.
Being in dresses and being in bodies of water. I think it's, and dating men who are shorter than me. That's like my thing.
This is like your thing. Everyone needs a thing.
Yeah.
This is yours.
Mine is a little complicated, a little obscure. It's perfect.
Everyone needs a water incident, right?
I think, I think it's, yeah.
And you've got some other projects coming up, although Heartbeat's not going for another season.
Yeah.
You're working on a sci-fi short film with your brothers, right? You've got a sweet but sad short that you worked on with Timothy Jensen, who also worked on The River Bride. And you also finished a full-length feature script. Do any of these involve water?
Oh, you're making me wonder if they do now. It's like, I'm wondering if this is like a
Rewrites.
weird thing that I have. No.
Yes!
All right.
That's a sound effect. That's like a ding, ding, ding.
Yeah,
Our
where's our-
studio audience. Yay! We're doing all the sound effects ourselves now.
We didn't need it.
So how do you balance all of these projects at once?
I'm actually kind of figuring that out right now. I have a big whiteboard in my room, and I do think I'm kind of like, I start working on something, and then I start working on another thing, and then I start working on another thing, and then I like have a meeting with someone, and so I feel like they're all going forward at once, which feels like a little bit crazy making, but I also kind of like it because I'm not getting burnt out on any one of them, because if I get stuck, or I'm like, oh, just, you lose the inspiration for a minute, I can pick up something else and then go back and finish this thing. And it's nice that I have collaborators with a few of them, because then I have, another person that's like, here, we're gonna move this forward even if you're dragging your feet. So
like, come on. So it's interesting that you're working with your brothers, because I feel like people either have relationships where they are just like great with their siblings, and sometimes it's like, I could take them or leave them.
Yeah.
So how is it working with someone who's related to you?
Oh, my brother and I are like best friends. People always comment on our relationship, because they are like, that's so cool, because we have a lot of the same friends at this point, because like we spend a lot of time together, and we hang out and we work together on like our own personal projects. So I love working with Evan. He and I are very different. He works kind of on the post side. He does motion graphics and compositing and things of that nature, and he's extremely talented. And then I kind of am more on the like creative, the writing, and obviously the acting side. But when we go together, we fill in a lot of the blanks for what is required to create a story. And he's really great with story too. So I feel like we're very complementary. When we were kids, we would definitely butt heads a lot because we made a feature film a long time ago. Like our first kind of, we were super naive and like, let's just make a movie. And we did it to the best of our ability. We had no idea what we were doing. I was still in college. And we fought a lot on that project because we just were trying to figure it out, but we also worked really well together. It was weird, and we finished it, which I feel like to me is like, it's not a great movie, but it says a lot that we were able to kind of dig our heels in and not just shelve it, because we didn't know what we were doing, so obviously there are all sorts of issues.
But you have to learn somehow,
right.
And if you're not just going to jump in and do it, you won't learn.
Yeah, and he worked on the River Bride with me too. I mean, he did all the editing on the film and all the visual effects, which, I mean, he really brought up the quality, and as did Timothy Jensen. Like, they both just carried it.
Well, it sounds like a big collaborative effort.
It was.
Definitely. So do you find that with your brother that you know each other so well that you either talk in shorthand or that you push each other's buttons because it's like, oh, you want to do that? Well,
Oh, no, definitely. We definitely know exactly what will get the other person going, but I don't think either of us like to be arguing with each other. We prefer being silly and stupid. But I know that if our hackles are, we definitely know where to like dig it in. But we also do have kind of like words that we just know, and like our text messages probably would make no sense to people often because it's just like one word, whatever. Right. Or we sound like we're being mean to each other, but it's, not mean. When he leaves, he'll like say something horrible to me, but to me, I'm like, oh, he loves me. He loves me. People are like, oh my God. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's my brother.
I feel like kudos to Caitlyn's mom who's watching, because that's really nice that you guys get along and can work together, and that's not rare, but it's not always what happens either.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize it was unique until I was an adult, and I started, people would comment and be like, I can't believe how close you and your brother are, and that's so awesome, or I've had parents be like, I wish my kids were that close, and I do think it's a testament to my mom, how she raised us, but I think Evan and I got lucky too, because I sometimes I think, you just grow differently than your sibling, and it's not necessarily a fault thing, and Evan and I have very similar senses of humor and sensibilities about the world, I think. So it makes it easier.
Right. Well, I find the whole sibling thing fascinating because I'm an only child. Oh, really? And on one hand, like, I love being, like with my parents because, of course, I got all the attention.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, of course, when you're a kid, you're like, I actually always wished I was a twin, specifically a twin. But so, that's not going to happen at this point, clearly.
Did you adopt friends that became like siblings?
Yeah.
When you were growing
and
up?
Interestingly, I suppose a lot of my friends were actually also only children.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. And even, like, now, like, my best friends are also only children.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was, like, a subconscious...
I don't know. But I do always, like... I can't even picture having someone who grew up with me who knows everything so intimately. That's not my mom. You know? So, yeah, mind blown. Right? It's sort of like we were talking about your height earlier and how everyone is like, and so do you play basketball? And so since I am clearly not basketball height without my shoes especially, that's another one that I'm like, whoa, I could like... dunk shot or whatever they call it, in basketball terms.
Michael Jordan doing his famous dunk shot.
What do they call this one?
I think that would be a free throw.
Clearly, we are not the basketball team here.
We're not going to sport it up in here.
No. So, With your feature film script that you just finished, is that one that, you're going to be trying to work on yourself? Is that one that you're hoping to shop around? What's the thought with that?
Well, I have one that I finished, and I have one that I'm writing right now. The one that I'm writing right now, I'm going to shoot. I'm determined to shoot it. I'm writing it in a way that I know that I can shoot it for whatever kind of money I either can come up with or just do it. Because I have a lot of resources, which is really nice right now. And I know that I just don't want to waste that, because I think a lot of people, they have really great ideas, but they don't have access to proper equipment or great actors, or, they're always missing. And I have literally almost every single thing through friends of mine, and that's very lucky. And so I definitely want to grab a hold of that. So I'm writing something right now that's going to be kind of a black comedy focused very much on actors and not so much locations, and that way we can kind of just get it done and make something and just see what happens. The one I finished, I probably would like to shop it around because it's a much bigger story, and I don't, I would like to definitely have a hand in making it, but it's something that's, budget-wise, it's outside of my grasp.
I don't know, keep walking those runways.
Exactly.
So, last question for you then, out of all those projects, which one do you think will show audiences something different in you than they've seen before from your other projects?
Probably the thing I'm writing right now, because I was trying to develop a character for myself that would kind of stretch my acting muscles, I guess, and do something that's slightly different and a little more heightened than I've done before. So I think the thing I'm writing right this minute, the black comedy, will probably show people a different side, which hopefully will rely more on comedy, but also like very grounded, kind of, dark.
Good. Well, good. It's always fun to see something new and exciting with all these projects. So thank you guys for joining us, and thank you, Caitlyn, for joining me in studio. This has been so much fun.
We've having me.
Heard about basketball. We've heard about dinosaurs. We've heard about actual working film projects. So, Caitlyn, where can everyone find you on social media?
They can find me at Dinosaur Disco on Twitter and Caitlyn Larimore on Instagram.
And I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. You can also find me on YouTube at Zoe Hewitt Hosting, where I do a weekly movie analysis show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Yay. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.